podcast.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and today gonna be a bit of a darker episode because we're going into World War II. I mean, we've talked a lot about like other things that have happened during World War II. We talked pretty early on about Unit 731 out of Japan, who did a lot of like crazy, unethical, inhumane experimentation on people, and that was sad and horrifying. But you know, on the other hand, we've also talked a lot about like some really cool characters and some heroic people, you know, who did some crazy things in World War II, and just in general haven't really talked about the Nazis a lot, just because I think that they just get all the press, right? Like they're the ones that get talked about the most. You know, whenever we talk about World War II, you know, always, you know, very aware of Hitler and all the things that he was doing, right? But even within his own inner circle, there were some people, you know, like we've heard Goebbels and Goering, you know, two of his top aides. There's another guy, Josef Mengele, who was also a gigantic pile of human trash. And his story is crazy, and we're going to cover it right now.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
Josef Mengele was born on March 6th, 1911 in Günzburg, Germany. He had a pretty great childhood before going off to Munich to study philosophy. And while he was there, he then joined a paramilitary group called Der Stahlhelm, which was later just absorbed by the Nazis. It would be like if it's essentially like kind of how the Proud Boys just kind of got absorbed by MAGA, more or less. Like no one really talks about the Proud Boys anymore, or like the Tea Party, because they're just all MAGA now. And like it's kind of the same thing. Now, am I equating MAGA to the Nazis? No, not explicitly, not implicitly. All right, I'm just saying that this group, Der Stahlhelm, they got just kind of absorbed by the Nazis because they had similar ideologies, just like, you know, the Tea Party and the Proud Boys got absorbed by MAGA because they're similar philosophies. Now, am I saying that MAGA and the Nazis have similar philosophies? Again, I'm not explicitly saying that. All right. If you want to be extremely sensitive and make that connection yourself, that's on you. All I'm saying is that there were two parallel paths there, and I'm just trying to give you a modern day comparison for something that happened a long time ago. That's it. All right. If you want to expand on that on your own, go right ahead. All right. But that's all I'm saying. Anyway, in 1935, Mengele earned his PhD in anthropology, and then he later joined the Institute for Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene, where he began working with Dr. Ottmar Freiherr von Verschuer. God, I hate German names, man. Dr. Ottmar Freiherr von Verschuer, who was super interested in how twins worked. And like, you know, it was, I mean, look, this is the 1930s, like twins are crazy, right? Because it's rare for like one child to be born healthy. But then like you spit two of them out and they look the same. Like that's crazy. Like, can they read each other's minds? Do they feel each other's pain? Can they sense when the other one's in trouble? Can you like put them like put a dividing wall between them and tell them to like raise a hand and see if they both raise the same hand or something. Like, I don't know, all that crazy stuff. And that's what he was into. And Mengele quickly grew to also be obsessed with twins and how they worked. Mengele then officially joined the Nazis in 1937. He went to basic training, joined the Waffen SS, which was this combat unit where he then served in a medical battalion. In 1942, after bouncing around various posts in World War II, Mengele was seriously wounded in a battle near Rostov-on-Don in Russia. Crazy connection there. That is where serial killer Andrei Chikatilo spent a lot of time. So that's a fun little fact. Anyway, after his injury, Mengele was declared unfit for service and was reassigned to the SS Race and Settlement main office. Where then he rejoined Dr. von Verschuer to do some crazy stuff. So, in 1943, a year later, on Dr. von Verschuer's recommendation, Mengele was transferred to Auschwitz and made chief physician of the Romani family camp. Oh boy. Now, despite being an actual doctor, it's more of a PhD kind of doctor, Mengele didn't actually care for any patients. He did not distribute medical care. Instead, he just kind of kept an eye on anyone who was sick and then ordered them to go to be sent to the gas chambers if they didn't recover after a certain period of time. When he wasn't then just picking who lived and who died, Mengele was scouting out people to use in his own experiments, namely people who were twins. While other doctors dreaded the idea of selecting people for their experiments because, spoiler alert, they knew that things would not be ending well for their subjects, Mengele took great joy in just lining people up and just kind of pointing, left to the gas chambers, right to my lab. And he would smile and whistle while he did it. This dude's insane already, and he technically hasn't even done anything bad yet. Well, when an outbreak of Noma, which was this gangrenous bacterial disease, swept through Mengele's Romani camp, he started, just out of the blue, began a study to figure out where the disease came from and to develop a solid treatment, which, yeah, that's great. That's what you should do. You kind of need that because I don't know what Noma is, but we don't need it around. He grabbed Dr. Berthold Epstein, a Jewish prisoner, yikes, and isolated the infected prisoners in separate barracks. Now, children who were infected were then killed and had their heads and organs preserved for study back at the SS Medical Academy in Graz. However, Mengele's camp was liquidated the following year in 1944, and everyone in there was killed before the study was complete. That's thousands of people, right? And it's crazy to think, we talk about how 6 million Jews were killed during World War II. Yeah. And that seems like a crazy, unfathomably high number, right? That would be if we wiped out Chicago, Phoenix, and Philadelphia. That's 6 million. That's 6 million people right there, those three cities. Chicago, Phoenix, and Philadelphia. Just wiped them off the planet. That's a lot of people. I don't know. I don't know that people necessarily realize all of that. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the terrible person. But so and this is just in Mengele's camp though, he's hand selecting people to either go study them, even though he knows that they're all going to end up dying anyway, but he gets to play with them for a little longer, or he's just sending them off to be killed. Noma starts, one of these examples where he starts studying and then, his camp ended up just getting liquidated. They just decided we're not even going to keep these camps anymore. And then they just kill everybody in the camps. Meanwhile, while all of that's going on in 1944 at a women's camp, prisoners were suffering from a typhus epidemic. And this time, instead of working on a cure, Mengele ordered an entire block of 600 women to immediately be sent to the gas chambers. 600 women, just immediately dead. He then repeated the same processes for other epidemics that swept through the camp. And German leaders actually thought that this was so ingenious that he was awarded the War Merit Cross and was promoted to first physician. That's insane. It's just like, oh, what do we do with all of these sick people? Oh, we just kill them all. Brilliant. Why bother keeping them alive when we can just kill them? This Josef Mengele, he's a very smart man. Very, very brilliant man. Let's give him the War Merit Cross and let's make him a first physician. It does not matter that he is not an actual medical doctor. He's making very brilliant medical decisions. Just killing people who are sick. Very brilliant. We should be doing this all the time. Anyway, when he wasn't busy killing sick people, Mengele used Auschwitz as his own little sick playground for researching heredity, specifically of identical twins, because he believed that twins were superior, I guess, to just as compared to like regular people. And if he could prove that hypothesis, it would help Germans encourage reproduction from more genetically superior families. So I guess like identical twins, then I guess maybe force them to bang other identical twins to then produce more just genetically superior people. I don't know. They had a lot of weird ideas, and there was, I mean, look, give the Nazis credit for being open-minded and never shooting down an idea whatsoever. They were very, very encouraging to just having their people chase their dreams. And that, I think, is admirable if you just don't count all of the horrific things that they did. If you're trying to find a silver lining, they really did encourage their people that there were no bad ideas because everything was on the table. Even more, on the bright side for this, Mengele's subjects for his twin studies were actually given better food and housing than other prisoners. He would also introduce himself as Uncle Mengele to his child subjects and then would give them candy to earn their trust, and that's creepy. Unfortunately, that trust was then met with insane experiments, such as amputations just to kind of see what would happen, and purposely infecting one twin with a disease and then transfusing the blood to the other twin to see what would happen. Almost as if like, and again, like the thing with the twins, that doesn't matter. Like if you just infect someone with a disease and then transfuse their blood into someone, like it's going to cause problems. But he was just like, I don't know. He thought that maybe the other twin would like, I don't know. I don't know what was going on in his creepy little Nazi brain. Not surprisingly, most of his subjects died during their experiments. Yeah. Those that survived somehow, miraculously, were then killed and then dissected after Mengele had no other use for them. On one occasion, Mengele killed 14 sets of twins after injecting half of them with chloroform directly into their hearts. Like, and again, that 14 sets, that's 28 people. Just injecting, you could just breathe in chloroform and see that it's not good for you. So injecting anything straight into someone's heart, it just doesn't ever. And so you would think maybe after this, I'll give you the first one. Got to make sure that wasn't just an anomaly. But maybe after the second, definitely after the third. But after the 14th, then you decide like, oh, okay, maybe this doesn't work out. Oh, God. When one twin died after this experiment, Mengele would then kill the other twin to compare the post-mortem reports. As if he needed to, but whatever. Another time, Mengele sewed two Romani twins together back to back to try to create conjoined twins because he clearly did not know how that worked. He just, I don't know, like, he just like heard of conjoined twins. He's just like, oh man, how does that happen? Do they just get like stuck together? And so then he just like sews these two people back to back. And guess what? They died from gangrene a few days later because of course they did. Mengele also tried to change a subject's eye color by injecting chemicals directly into their eyeball. Ow. People with heterochromia, which is the people who have like two different eye colors, were automatically killed. Like, you got two different color eyes, gross, die, you freak of nature, and he kills them. And so that he could then send their eyes to Berlin for further study as to why they were like that. Oh, and if you were a dwarf, if you had dwarfism, good luck in getting anything, because they were given unnecessary drugs and x-rays to just figure out why they were so small. Like, just, oh God. Well, guess what? It keeps getting worse. It's going to keep getting worse for a while, just so you know. Pregnant women would be subjected to various experiments before being sent to the gas chambers. Mengele also performed vivisections without anesthesia, often removing hearts and stomachs from prisoners while they were awake and fully conscious. One man, Yitzhak Gannon, later claimed that Mengele removed his kidney without anesthesia and then forced him to return to labor without any painkillers. That's nuts. And that's just the stuff that Mengele was directly involved with. There were actually so many other human experiments that the Nazis were conducting at other concentration camps. Would you like to know what they were? Of course you do. That's why you're listening to this. At Ravensbrück, subjects had their bones, muscles, and nerves surgically removed without anesthesia to see if transplants were possible. Prisoners also had bacteria injected directly into their bone marrow to study the effectiveness of newly developed drugs. Also at Ravensbrück, prisoners were infected with various bacteria such as streptococcus, gangrene, and tetanus. They then had their blood vessels tied off at both ends to simulate a battlefield injury and had wood and glass shavings forced into their wounds. The infections were then treated with sulfonamide, which didn't actually work. At Baranowicz, Nazis performed an experiment in which a young boy was strapped to a chair and just bonked on the head every few seconds with a hammer. And he eventually went insane because of course he did. Like, you're going to just hit people and just like a little light tap on the head with a hammer, which is going to hurt anyway, but you just keep doing that just indefinitely. Yeah, they're going to go insane, right? At Dachau, the Luftwaffe experimented with ways to prevent and treat hypothermia by immersing subjects, Jews, in extremely cold water for over an hour to see what their body temperature was when they took them out. Other experiments involved rewarming those bodies, including one where prisoners were basically like taken out of a cold water bath and then just chucked directly into boiling water. Okay. Also at Dachau, prisoners were purposely infected with malaria to test drug effectiveness. Over 600 people died from these experiments. Prisoners were also subjected to drinking nothing but seawater so the Germans could see if it was actually drinkable. Spoiler alert, it isn't. It never has been. And just, oh God. Anyway, again, also at Dachau, which one of the worst places outside of Auschwitz, a low pressure chamber was constructed to simulate high altitude condition to figure out what would happen to pilots who were forced to eject. Sigmund Rascher, who led this experiment, performed vivisections on the brains of subjects who somehow survived the initial experiment. That is insane, right? Like lowly little Jew, all right? He gets put into this low pressure chamber to simulate like high altitudes. And then he somehow survives. And then this dingaling, Sigmund Rascher, takes him out. And while he's still alive, cuts his head open and pulls his brain out to see, I guess, like what his brain was looking like after being in such low air pressure. Rascher also experimented with Polygal, which was this drug made from beets and apple pectin that aided in blood clotting. He thought that the drug would help reduce bleeding from gunshot wounds suffered during battle, so he gave the subjects this drug and then would purposely shoot them in the neck or the chest to see if it worked. And of course it did. Like, he just, like, in his mind, he basically thought like someone could take this drug and then they could get shot and just not bleed. And no, that's not how that works at all. Like, especially if you get shot in the neck or in the chest, where like a lot of really important blood is, maybe like the most important blood. And just, God, anyway. At Buchenwald, prisoners were purposely poisoned to see what would happen. Some male Jewish prisoners had poisonous substances injected into their skin, which created boils that filled with black fluid. Ugh. Also at Buchenwald, prisoners were firebombed to see what effect phosphorus burns had on people. And guess what? Bad effects is what it was. At various camps, prisoners were deliberately exposed to mustard gas, and then Nazis would then test the chemical burns to find the most effective treatment. Now, that's a lot of insane stuff, right? Now, it would be unfair of me to be hypercritical of all of these things, because in some ways, a lot of these experiments did advance scientific understanding of how certain drugs worked or what happens to the human body under certain conditions, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, did the way they go about it, was it super terrible? Absolutely. Should they have done the things that they did? Probably not. Actually, I'm going to take the probably out of it. Like, no, you should not have done what you did. All right. I think, we should save. If we don't want to do, this is a brilliant idea that I just had, right? I've talked before about having like pay-per-view executions, and I feel like we are living in a time where that's a realistic possibility. Like it would be a 20 steps back in terms of the progress that we've made as a culture and a society. But given the current climate, I feel like you get the right person in charge, we could have pay-per-view executions, all right? And I'd be fine with it. But another thing that we could do is all of these death row prisoners, if we're not actually going to execute them, let's do these kinds of experiments on them, because they suck, all right? This is what they deserve, all right? You're going to murder your entire family? Okay, cool. Then you deserve to have like experimental drugs put and like get like doused in mustard gas, and then we'll just throw some various ointments on you to see what happens. And if one of those ointments causes your skin to literally melt off your body, oh well, that's what you get for murdering your entire family. But to do it to all these little Jews, these innocent little Jews, it's not okay, and that's really the point here, the experiments, some of them in a way needed to have, like for example, Sigmund Rascher experimenting with the polygal drug, right? Needed to have those experiments. Now, did he need to shoot people in the neck and the chest? Probably from close range to see if their blood would clot fast enough. No, he did not have to do that. He could have made a couple of slices on the skin to see how quickly the blood would clot. But no, he had to shoot them. And that's where it goes a little overboard, I think. You agree with this, I know. Anyway, as World War II came to a close and the concentration camps were liberated, Josef Mengele left Auschwitz and then just traveled around Europe disguised as a Wehrmacht officer. He carried loads of highly incriminating documents outlining his super unethical experiments with him to keep them safe. But then he chose to leave them with a nurse in Czechoslovakia before being captured by the Americans in June 1945. That's why we know about a lot of the things that he did. Thanks to just awful disorganization by the Allied forces, the Americans didn't actually have Mengele on their list of people they needed to immediately kill for being war criminals, and they actually released him a month later, which is crazy, right? Like there's so much, and I get it, right? Like there's so much insane stuff coming out of World War II between the Japanese and the Germans that it's easy to just kind of accidentally leave certain people off the list. Like I'm sure they were absolutely looking for Hitler and Goebbels and Goering. But, this one guy who's also kind of doing all of the terrible stuff at Auschwitz, maybe it's conceivable that they didn't realize everything that he was doing and they accidentally let him go. Well, realizing his good fortune, he obtained false papers and assumed a new identity under the name Fritz Hallman. After getting his Auschwitz files back from that nurse in Czechoslovakia, which is weird, Mengele worked on a farm near Rosenheim before escaping Germany entirely on April 17th, 1949. Now, thanks to a network of former SS members hiding out all over Europe, Mengele was able to travel to Italy, where he obtained a passport under the alias Helmut Gregor and then sailed for Argentina. After landing in Buenos Aires, Mengele worked as a carpenter before expanding his parents' farm equipment company, Carl Mengele and Sons, into an international business by working as a sales rep in Argentina and Paraguay, which is crazy, right? Like, you have, and again, like, it's one of those things that it's easy to forget that there's just like businesses and things going on, not just before the war, but like during the war. You know, like stores still kind of had to stay open and, you know, business and everything still had to keep going. And so Josef Mengele, like his parents owned this farm equipment company. And then after the war, after he spent decades torturing people and having, you know, thousands of people murdered under his direction, literally thousands of people murdered under his direction, right? He just flees to Argentina. You know, and like, you know, the rumors of Nazis landing in Argentina, Brazil, like they're true. He's in Argentina and he just like picks back up his parents' business and starts working as a sales rep for them and growing their business in this new country. With all of this, he also, when he wasn't selling farm equipment, though, he was still a giant piece of trash because he was still illegally practicing medicine and performing abortions on people. And not, you know, not medically safe abortions, probably. Despite all of this, he was issued a foreign residence permit from the Argentinian government in 1956 under his real name, which by now, in 1956, right? Like this is only, you know, 5 to, you know, 8, 9 years removed from World War II. Everyone knows by now that this dude is a murderous psychopath. And he's just like in Argentina, like, yes, my name is Josef Mengele. I'd like to, you know, become a, you know, foreign resident. That's great. And the Argentinian government's like, yeah, that's fine. I don't see any problem with this. You know, what do we care? We don't have Jews here. He even was actually able to spend several weeks vacationing in Europe and visit with his son, and no one ever caught him. No one ever was like just walking around Europe and be like, hey, there's a former Nazi right there. Why is he walking free? No one ever did anything. When he returned to Argentina, he then recruited his widowed sister-in-law and her son to come and live with him. I don't know why he didn't recruit his own son to come live with him, but whatever. In 1958, Mengele was questioned on suspicion of practicing medicine without a license. Although he was cleared of any charges, he knew that the publicity from this case would expose his Nazi background. And so the following year, he moved to Paraguay and changed his name to Jose Mengele. Not like Jose being the Spanishization, I don't know, of Joseph. So like, what is, not like he's actually, oh my God. He probably just like grew a mustache too. And that's it. Like just walking around. It's just, hey, are you Josef Mengele? Oh no, yo no, I am Jose Mengele. And no one's buying it. Anyway. By 1960, I realized that was a terrible joke, and I was like trying to also do a half Spanish, half German accent, and everything just fell flat there, you know? Not everything is going to be a home run. That's okay. By 1960, Nazi hunters had arrived in South America to track down and arrest several Nazis who had fled to Argentina. Still, Mengele was nowhere to be found, despite West Germany offering a reward for his capture. As media coverage about him grew, Mengele then sneaked into Brazil, where he, using another fake name, found work managing a farm for a couple of Hungarian expatriates. Although those Hungarians found out about Mengele's true identity in 1963, they chose not to say anything out of fear that they would then be indicted for harboring a fugitive. Because again, like he'd probably been working for these Hungarians for a couple of years now, and then they finally realized who he was, and then it's like, well, God, I mean, if people find out we've been harboring this former Nazi for years, they're just going to assume that we were doing it on purpose. Because I can't imagine sympathy for anyone connected to anything Nazi related was going to be pretty high around this time. And they're just going to assume the worst about you in every situation. On February 7th, 1979, after finally alienating that Hungarian family, Mengele suffered a stroke while swimming and drowned. Good. I hope it was a slow drowning. I hope that like while he was swimming, he realized he was having a stroke and then like on an inhale, then started to drown. And then he just like sinking to the bottom of this pool or lake or wherever he was swimming. And he just like has to finally breathe, and then he gets like lungs full of water and it burns and he can't breathe. And I hope he panicked a lot, and I hope it hurt a lot, and he didn't just like black out of panic and then not really feel anything. His body was buried under the name Wolfgang Gerhard, which was an identity he had been using since 1971 that formerly belonged to the man that had originally helped get him into Brazil in the first place. Meanwhile, the rest of the world really had no idea where Mengele had been all of these years. There had been reported sightings in Cairo and Spain, and although Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal, along with Israel's Mossad intelligence agency, had been close to tracking him down, no one had ever found him. Like almost 30 years, this dude lived in South America, just kind of generally kind of dodging Nazi hunters, but like just getting fake identities, just kind of getting by, making a living, and never got caught, which sucks, right? Like whatever. In 1985, after a mock trial in Jerusalem fully illuminated all of the horrible things Mengele had done, enough intelligence came in to lead authorities to Brazil, where they found Wolfram and Lieselette Bossert, the couple who was with Mengele when he drowned. The Bosserts told authorities where Mengele was buried, and his body was exhumed a few days later. In 1992, DNA testing confirmed that this body was indeed Mengele's, and Jews all over the world were invited to come and desecrate it however they liked. Probably. I don't think so officially, but they should have, right? Anyway. Although Brazil wanted to send the remains back to Germany, of course no one wanted them. So instead, Mengele's skeleton is now used as an educational aid for forensic medicine courses at the Sao Paulo Institute for Forensic Medicine, which is good. All right. This dude who spent a good portion of his life experimenting on people to then, study their bodies, now has his body studied by other people.
All done.
There you go. Josef Mengele, one of the worst Nazis that for a long time no one really knew about, or like at least knew where he was. Anyway, he's in the books. Let's recap and see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Actually, like first, like I don't think this was a good episode. Like for me personally, I had a Red Bull before I started, like because I had a coupon, and we got one of those like places that'll make like fun drinks for you, and like one of them was like this thing that had like Red Bull, and then like some oranges in it, and like some guava. And all that kind of stuff. And just like, I don't know, man, like I can taste the Red Bull and I don't understand why Red Bull is so popular. It's not good. It's just, I don't know, it's got weird, like I feel like when I drink Red Bull, I feel like I'm drinking cancer. And I don't know, like granted, it's, it's not, I don't think anybody recommends drinking like multiple Red Bulls every day for years. But it's not like the most unhealthy thing, but it's just, I don't know. I think like Reign or Ghost or C4 or Celsius like are just so much better. Not just better for you, despite also being crazy high in caffeine, but I don't know, just something about Red Bull. Anyway, that's what I learned today. But what did we learn together? Josef Mengele, he wasn't even a doctor. He was an anthropologist, and then somehow backed his way into some of these crazy medical experiments. Number 2, he killed so many Jews, you guys. Like, I didn't mention this in the episode. He was known as the Angel of Death by all the Jews in and around the concentration camps. He is responsible. There's not like an exact number, but historians think that he was directly responsible for the deaths of anywhere between 400,000 and 1.1 million people, most of them being the Jews in the concentration camp. That is crazy. Even if it's on the low end, right? Like, even if it wasn't even 400,000, the fact that that's where they start the number is crazy, right? Because again, you got to remember, like, he really only cared about twins, right? And so he's at these concentration camps. There's hundreds of thousands of people just at Auschwitz alone. And he's going through, and if people were sick, he ordered them to be killed. If they weren't twins and he needed to find twins for his studies, he would just kill the people that weren't twins. And then he would then kill the twins, of course. But he would probably send hundreds of people to their deaths every single day, just trying to find his next test subject. Anyway, number 3, he was one of the highest ranking Nazi officials to flee to South America, ended up spending almost 30 years there, just hiding out. And, it is what it is. Like, I think there's like this weird kind of paranoia that like the Nazis are still alive and like planning their next big thing for, whenever, which that would be cool, right? That would be a crazy sequel. Just, 2040, Nazis, the return. And all of a sudden, like, Argentina is like some weird kind of super racist world superpower. And, we got to go down there and kill, which, I mean, who would they be against? Because, like, it's not like they got Jews over there. Those gross Chileans, probably it. What's up with your country? It's just a big stick. Anyway, I don't know. I think that was 3, right? I don't know. This Red Bull. I don't know. Let's get here.
What did we learn?
I mean, here's the thing. Guy was a giant piece of trash. Why should I give my best effort to such a trash person? That's the takeaway. Anyway, next week on Our Weird World, we're going to start a 2-part series where we're staying local. We are going to tell some more stories about my home state of North Carolina. We're going to be doing that next 2 weeks, parts 3 and 4 of some stories from North Carolina. Next week, we got 4 really interesting stories. We're going to look at the Coal Glen disaster, the Little Rascals daycare, the Luray Mill strike, and a place known affectionately as Munchkin Land. It's a real place. I'm going to tell you all about it next week. So thank you for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.
This is a podcast